Last week, I started outsourcing parts of my life. Not in the dramatic sense where someone suddenly hires assistants to run every aspect of their daily routine, although there's a possibility that that's where I'm headed. Anyway, I chose to start with 3 recurring, time-draining tasks that appear in my life every single week and asked myself a question. Does this actually require my time and energy? The answer was an obvious no. So this past week, I outsourced grocery shopping, cleaning, and lawn care. Groceries are now delivered to the house without ever stepping foot into a grocery store. Cleaning is going to be handled by a professional service that comes on a regular schedule. And I found a lawn care company that will maintain the yard and landscaping going forward. If everything works as planned, outsourcing those 3 chores should save about 6 hours of my time every week. Over the course of a year, that's more than 300 hours, or nearly 2 full weeks of time back. The annual cost will be a few $1,000s, depending on service frequency and delivery fees. But so far, the most interesting thing I found about outsourcing my life has nothing to do with time. What surprised me most was something else completely. Welcome back to my fellow tired friends. I'm Callie, and for all of my career, I've worked in operational roles, helping companies redesign how work is assigned and how it flows through teams and departments so that organizations function smoothly and sustainably. Over the years, I've seen the same pattern play out again and again. When a business scales or the market changes, things can start feeling chaotic, or team members can become overwhelmed. That's where my role comes in, and I'm tasked with finding a solution. And the solution is never to ask people to work harder, wake up earlier, or drink more water. Instead, we reorganize, reprioritize, and redesign. We adjust responsibilities, streamline processes, implement technology to automate repetitive tasks, and balance the headcount with the workload. These changes have proven to me that we can completely transform how an organization functions. I see teams become calmer, workloads become more balanced, and the entire system begins to run more efficiently. But when it comes to personal productivity, we rarely apply that same thinking to our own lives. Instead, the advice tends to revolve around discipline and willpower. We're told to wake up earlier, build stronger habits, track everything, stick to routines, and eat more fiber. I've recently realized just how different these 2 trains of thought are, and began to question whether business productivity is the better advice. If systems thinking is powerful enough to transform organizations with thousands of employees, why would we assume it has no relevance to our personal lives? That question is really the origin of this entire experiment. As I talked about last week, I've decided to turn my life into a company, and so far I've been calling it Callie James Incorporated, but really, this is the Callie Experiment. The idea is simple. Treat life the way businesses treat operations. Instead of assuming that I have to spend all of my time doing all the adult things, like cleaning and yard work, I'm redesigning my life to make more time for all the things I say matter to me, but that I've put in the back burner of my priorities. The goal isn't to become hyper-productive or to eliminate every inconvenience, or to make aesthetically pleasing planners, or even to build the perfect 23-step skincare routine. The goal is to design systems that allow life to function more smoothly with less unnecessary effort. And the process I'm using is the same I've used for businesses over the years. Outsource what I can, especially the things that eat up most of my time, automate things that are repetitive, and then optimize what's left. And hopefully what's left are the things I want to spend my time on. But it doesn't stop there. Then we repeat again to see what else can be let go. Before diving into the results from this week, I want to quickly clarify what I actually mean when I say I'm outsourcing my life. That phrase can sound extreme at first. Maybe when you hear it, it sounds like I'm avoiding responsibility or trying to eliminate every task that isn't enjoyable. Or maybe you hear it and think I'm trying to spend every day on the beach drinking margaritas. But that's really not what this experiment is about. This experiment is not about avoiding responsibility. It's not about outsourcing everything. It's definitely not about turning life into some hyper-optimized productivity machine. And it's not even about removing everything from my life so my days are spent at the beach. What this experiment is really about is identifying repetitive tasks that do not require my judgment, creativity, or presence, and buying back the time that those tasks take from me every week or year. It's about reducing decision fatigue and designing systems that free up mental and physical energy for the parts of life that actually matter, so I can spend a day at the beach with friends without the anxiety that I'm ignoring a never-ending to-do list. In business, leaders of organizations constantly ask whether a task truly requires their attention or even internal attention, or whether it can be handled by automation, external services, or better systems. This experiment simply applies that same question to everyday life. A big reason I kicked off this experiment is because so much of my time was being spent on doing all the regular adult responsibilities. And I was constantly letting relationships, hobbies, and things I truly care about fall to the bottom of my list of priorities. So when I started mapping out my life into departments, it was pretty obvious that a lot of these activities were about life maintenance, but not growth. Basically, all those tasks that keep things functioning, but not necessarily moving forward. Paying bills, cleaning the house, scheduling appointments, running errands, managing logistics, maintaining the yard, handling administrative details. None of these tasks are dramatic on their own, but together they create a constant background hum of responsibility. When that hum gets loud enough, it can easily take my energy that could otherwise go toward things that actually move life forward. Learning something new, spending time with people, building meaningful projects, enjoying time outdoors, or pursuing hobbies. In business, maintenance work is often automated, outsourced, or handled by specialized teams. But in personal life, we tend to carry all of it ourselves. So one of the goals of this experiment is to examine those maintenance tasks and ask a simple question. Does this actually need to be done by me? I found the answer is often no. So diving into this week's update, let's start with groceries. Grocery shopping is one of those tasks that quietly shows up every single week. The list rarely changes much, the store is usually the same, and the entire process takes about an hour or maybe 90 minutes, once you factor in driving, walking through the store, checking out, and unpacking everything at home. This is one of those chores that I dread. People slowly moving through the store without any sense of urgency. The store has to be kept cold so things don't mold, and I just end up with goosebumps. The number of decisions, both yes and no, that have to be made is draining, and the lines are unnecessarily long. So instead of subjecting myself to a task that takes away my time, energy, and warmth week over week, I started using grocery delivery. The order itself takes about 5 minutes to place. The groceries arrive at the door, and the process is handled without leaving the house. If everything continues to work smoothly, that one change alone should save roughly 50 hours per year. But the most interesting benefit had nothing to do with time. It had to do with the decisions that surround grocery shopping. Grocery shopping is more than just the trip to the store. It's the chain of decisions that happens before and after. Every time you open the refrigerator or look at something on the shelf at the store, you're making a decision. What should I cook tonight? Do I have the ingredients? Should I try something new? What do I feel like eating? Those decisions repeat again and again, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. That means dinner alone creates more than 300 decisions every year. None of those decisions are individually difficult, but collectively they accumulate. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as decision fatigue. The more decisions we make throughout the day, the harder it becomes to make good ones later. That's one reason so many people end up ordering takeout after long workdays. Not because cooking is impossible, but because deciding feels exhausting. So removing grocery shopping didn't just save time, it removed a surprising number of small decisions that happen in the background. The second task I chose to outsource last week was cleaning, and this one revealed something slightly different. Unlike grocery shopping, cleaning tends to happen in cycles. You do a deep cleaning session every quarter, then you still need weekly maintenance to keep the house livable. And even worse is that there's still tasks that have to be completed every day, just to have clean plates to use for lunch. It's never ending, and you can never catch up or be done with it. You know that feeling when you finish dishes and then turn around and there's one more pot on the stove? That's what cleaning always feels like to me. There's always one more pot, one more window, one more crumb. Just 10 more minutes. So instead of maintaining that cycle alone and dealing with the daily burnout, I hired a cleaning service. If everything works as planned, that should save about 3 hours every week. Over the course of a year, that's more than 150 hours. But the real benefit isn't just time, it's consistency. Because when something becomes someone else's responsibility, it stops competing with all the other demands in your schedule. The house gets cleaned whether I'm busy or not. And that consistency removes the mental negotiation that often happens when we decide whether to clean now or push it to another day. Cleaning also revealed something about mental load. When something is your responsibility, it never completely leaves your mind. Even when you're not actively cleaning, there's a small voice reminding you that the floors need attention or the bathroom could use a deeper clean. Whew. That background awareness creates pressure, and pressure accumulates over time. But by outsourcing the task, it becomes someone else's responsibility, and that pressure disappears. The task still happens, but the mental ownership changes. That shift in ownership is actually one of the most powerful aspects of outsourcing for me so far. And no, this doesn't mean I have someone showing up at my house every day to do my dishes, but it does mean that doing the dishes doesn't feel so daunting, because it's a single task, and not just a step within a never-ending cleaning list. Moving on, the third change this week was lawn care. This one happened after spending most of a Saturday working in the yard getting things ready for spring. By Sunday morning, I was tired, sunburnt, and realizing that the entire weekend had essentially disappeared into maintenance work. And honestly, not even maintenance work I enjoy. I know there's plenty of you out there who love gardening or take pride in cutting your lawn into the perfect lines, but that's not me. So I signed a contract with a lawn care company. Yard work is routine, predictable, and repetitive, with minimal need for me to be the person making any of the decisions. So it was a perfect candidate for outsourcing. The thing I'm most excited about with these 3 tasks outsourced isn't even the time saved. Yes, 2 full weeks of my year back is pretty substantial, and it definitely opens time for me to fill with more of the things I love. But really, what feels to have already changed most is how much lighter I feel going into this weekend. Tomorrow morning, I'll place my grocery order and have it delivered while I'm working. Then the cleaning service will be here tomorrow afternoon. And Saturday morning, I should be waking up to the sound of my lawn getting mowed. Now I see space in my weekend, instead of a chore list. That realization led to a much bigger insight. The real problem most people have isn't time management. It's decision management. Every day, we make hundreds of small decisions. What should I cook? When should I work out? What errands need to happen today? What chores are overdue? Individually, those decisions are small, but collectively, they create friction. In business, we reduce friction by designing systems that remove unnecessary decisions, which leads directly to the next phase of this experiment. Week 1 focused on removing physical chores, groceries, cleaning, lawn care, things that I can mostly decide once and then remove from my mind as something that needs to be monitored. So week 2 is going to focus on just that, outsourcing decision fatigue. Specifically, 3 areas where decisions happen constantly for me. The first is meal planning. Instead of deciding what to cook every night, I've decided I will outsource it. How? I'm not sure yet. Maybe an app, maybe a coach. I haven't started to research that one yet. But what I want is a simple meal plan that gives me my weekly grocery list and tells me what I'm cooking every night. That's it. No decisions, just process. The second is workout programming. I spend a decent amount of time on Sundays putting together my workouts for the week ahead. If I don't, I end up just doing the things I like and missing entire muscle groups. Looking at you, bench press. I don't want to worry about this anymore. So this week, I'm going to figure out how to get rid of it. Maybe this is an app as well, or maybe it's a coach. Maybe it's a change in gyms for an entirely different experience. I'll keep you posted on how this progresses. And the third task I want to outsource this week is wardrobe decisions. I've never been great at shopping and definitely don't find it relaxing. So why am I doing it? Sure, I could just stop. Whatever clothes I have today are the ones I have the rest of my life. Definitely an option, but probably not the best choice. So I'm getting a stylist. What service this is through, or if I find someone direct, not sure yet. But I'd love to get seasonal wardrobe upgrades without ever looking at a website or spending hours in a fitting room. And that's the plan for now. Week 1 removed hours of physical chores. Week 2 removes hours of decisions. Before wrapping up and heading out to tackle week 2 of outsourcing, I want to address a few questions that came into my inboxes this week. The first one is pretty simple. What does it mean to outsource your life? For me, in this experiment, outsourcing doesn't mean eliminating everything that requires effort. It simply means identifying tasks that are repetitive, predictable, and do not require personal involvement. Those tasks can often be handled by systems, services, or automation. Think of your bank as an example. Their core purpose is financial management, but they also have call centers, marketing, and so many other responsibilities. Does it make sense for them to own the responsibility of all those tasks? Or does it make more sense for them to hire call center services or a marketing agency to do those specific things? And probably better than they can do in-house, because they don't have the skill set to do it as well as the service can. Bringing it back to my life, yard work could easily eat up 3 hours of my weekend. But someone who does this professionally can get the whole yard done in an hour. They have the skills, tools, and knowledge I'm missing to make it efficient. That's worth paying for. The second question was, why are you doing this experiment at all? The answer is curiosity. I've transformed underperforming businesses into efficiency machines, and I want to see if the same principles can apply to personal life. Also, because I'm a bit tired of being told that I just need to drink more water and eat more protein to make my life run better. I did have a question asking what happens if there's no budget to outsource tasks. That's a fair question. If there's no room in the budget, then there's no room, and outsourcing may have to be skipped the first time through this exercise. If freeing up time could open more avenues for income generation, then there's still a conversation to be had there. One of my favorite options would be a barter system. You don't mind cleaning but hate yard work? Find someone who hates cleaning but crushes yard work and swap tasks. Outsourcing doesn't always have to require large amounts of money. It's also okay to get creative. But also, don't give up, because you may skip outsourcing. But many forms of automation cost nothing. And sometimes the biggest change is simply rethinking how responsibilities are organized. Another question I got was how I'm deciding what to outsource first. For me, the most obvious place to start is trying to eliminate the things that take the most of your time. I can't outsource my day job, my workouts, or my sleep, but weekend chores? Sure. Shopping? Yep. So looking at my weeks and mapping out how many hours I'm spending on any one thing helped me determine which items would make the biggest difference in my week, so I could get a quick win and get the motivation to keep going. Another financial question I received was whether this experiment only works for wealthy individuals. I mean, sure, superior wealth would sure make this a lot easier, but wealth is not a required prerequisite for outsourcing. Some services do require financial investment, but the broader idea is about resource allocation. Every person has limited time and energy, so can you buy, earn, or trade your way back into balancing how those resources are used? And finally, a few people wondered whether outsourcing parts of life makes life feel less personal. I actually think this is a really interesting question. I'm honestly a bit too early in the process to give you a truly accurate answer, but in looking at my plans for this weekend, I think it's the opposite. Instead of spending my weekend at home doing chores, I'm going to be in the city with friends, hopefully enjoying the weekend and not worrying about when I'll have to find time to get through cleaning or mowing the yard. So, on the surface, I think being able to spend my time doing the things I find most important should make life feel more personal. But I'll check back on this one after I've had time to settle into this new process. All right, so that's it. That's where the experiment stands right now. 3 tasks outsourced, several hours reclaimed each week, and one major insight about how decision fatigue shapes my life. Next week, I'm going to find something new to fill my time with since I've outsourced chores, and at the same time, tackle outsourcing decision fatigue. The thing I'm excited to find out? If I can remove hundreds of small decisions from my week, what happens to my energy and focus? That's what I'm testing next.